This tutorial is going to walk you through a process in Digital Goldsmith and MatrixArt to prepare an image for MatrixArt, and then to within the Digital Goldsmith program or any photo editing program that you have, 2D editor, and then within Matrix to open it up in MatrixArt and to play with it a little. We're going to try two different variations on the same model to compare their differences. Begin with, I'm going to open up Digital Goldsmith and show you how the image was edited, how it started and how it's going to finish. So we just opened up Digital Goldsmith. To begin with, we're going to open the an original image, file open. Okay, and as you can see, this image, which probably came from a logo, it looks like it may even have been scanned in, which is kind of neat. So it probably started as fabric or something, has all these grainy pixels in it, which you might get with a large image that was created in a certain way, or obviously if it was a fabric image that was scanned in, or you get this a lot when the image started off really small. You'll imagine that these little grainy things are the pixels that made up the image. So as you zoom way back, you can see, hey, this looks pretty good. But as you get way in, you see all these little pixels and it looks pretty bad. So what we did to fix this is just to draw a big lasso. If it'll let us, the video is taken over here. Just to draw a big lasso around the image. And then using the effects menu, I used the lighten tool to start with, so the highs would get higher, obviously, and the darks lower. Actually, just the highs higher. And then I went to the rest of these. The contrast will make the lights lighter and the darks darker, so that's good to play with as well. You also want to go into the soften one, and this one took very many soften effects. What you want to do is just soften it, soften it, soften it until you can't see any more of the grains. So this just took repeated clicks on the soften. It needs like a slider or something. Anyway, on the soften feature, and we just softened it, softened it, softened it until we couldn't stand it anymore. I also played with the light and the dark just because I have a pretty good idea of what's going to work in MatrixArt, and the contrast as well. Once it gets too uncontrasty, you'll want to raise the contrast of it so that ooh, yuck. We didn't do that many. Okay. Anyhow, you can see the result of what we got. And then because the lighten, I wasn't sure what it had done to the background. And when I tried this image in MatrixArt, I got some like lines through the mesh, and I found that it looked pretty problematic. Was I just did the effects tool all over again. The Pro tool of the magic, sorry, not effects tool, but the Pro tool of the magic tool. Okay, obviously that magic tool paints out all the backgrounds, allowing you to put this on any background you want. So I just paint out the background all over again, and you want to get pretty close so that you don't see this black line around him. Although it is better, oopsie, undo. It is better to have black as the outline than white, because you don't want parts of the outside of the image to be raised up unnaturally. So just got as close as I could. Oops, again, don't click on the gray. That'll be a problem. Okay, and then once you hit resume, as you know, you'll be able to draw this lasso around and just draw it really close to the design there. Put it into a job bag, resume. Okay, and now basically you're ready to start up a brand new canvas. And I just doubled the size out here from, usually it's 800 by 600. I doubled it to 1600 by 1200 so the whole thing would fit. And, oops, oh, you didn't see my job bags. I brought it out of a job bag onto that. So there's the new one that I just masked. Okay, onto that new image, apply, and you can just do a file, save as, and you've got your new image. So basically that new image is right here. Oops, that's the old image. The new image is right here, add to our after. And you can compare it to the original image just in the fact that, oh, that's the one I played with. We'd have to open it again. So let's open it again. Oops. Open. Okay, There's the original, and there's the new. This is the one that I'm going to use for the matrix art tutorial here in a sec. So you can see there's a lot darker darks, and that's going to push this part of our coat way down. Now it's going to do the same thing here, but we're going to look at a way to fix that. But now it's just not as dark, so it'll leave it closer to the color of the skin. The other thing obviously we did, and because this was probably scanned in from somebody's like patch, or I'm not sure where the image came from, or else it was a pretty interesting effect for a printing program or an Illustrator kind of program with these little pixels. Well, we don't want that. And like I said, the same thing can happen if you scan in an image, or if you have an image, maybe it's a tiny little thumbnail and it's way too small. You want to come in and you want to really gray all these little pixels out. So this is a good example. So once they're all grayed out and you don't see if you zoom in, you just see blur. You don't really see every little pixel now. The last thing I did, of course, was the alpha masking trick with the magic tool. To get rid of the background, I saw these weird stripes through it. So if you ever get that, just put it on a plain black background so you can trim it right to this bitmap. And of course, if you don't do that, you can always trace around the edges of this if it's giving you problems, but it just saves you some work. Okay, so once we have this one, it's called Adwar After. We're going to go back into Matrix and see how to use it in MatrixArt. Just have to close out of DG. Okay, the first step I do in bringing an image into MatrixArt is to start with the picture frame tool. That's in the view menu, and it's the last little face guy there. We go out and find the image that we're going to use, Adwar After. Open it up, and when you're placing the picture frame, you're placing the two bottom edges of this picture. You just want to estimate how big you want it based on where the little person is in that picture. Okay. Now we're pretty much only working and looking down, but we'll go over and look in perspective to see the height we're getting, and look in the other viewports to see how tall it's going to be and how good it looks from all angles. But mostly just you can only work in MatrixArt in looking down. Only work in looking down, so we just expanded that for you. Now we're going to take the lowest layer color, grab the curve tool rectangle, and just trace this. And the nice thing about picture frame is you can snap to either edge, because you want this to be exactly the same size as the picture frame surface out there, so you can snap it, which is really nice. And to begin with, we're just going to take this curve into MatrixArt by itself and see the results we get from the image. So we're going to open up Art. Hopefully you can see that mostly there. See if it wants to come out there into the viewports. Nope, it wants to dock. Okay, we'll try this. Select the curve and put it into the curves menu. And you're going to see the preview profile come up. And actually, it's already switched to the profile I was going to pick, but that's fine because I've been working on this previously before I did the video. A little practice round never hurts. Oops. Float, please. Float, float. Okay. Okay. So you're going to activate, well, the only color that there is active, yellow. You're going to click on Load Profile, and then from the bottom here, you're going to pick one of these profile shapes to use as your profile. We'll pick this one. And then if you want to, you can click and drag these control points to edit that shape a little. And especially for things that I want to look puffy, I usually make the top look flat so you don't get that ridge right through the top. You might see them on the corners, but it's a lot more noticeable when it goes right through the center and they all meet and it looks kind of like a weird chisel thing, unless you want that result, obviously. So this is just going to allow us to have a flat top. And remember, this is 1/2 of the profile. So what we're seeing is this, and it can only go halfway through the model. That's just the way MatrixArt works. Okay, we can also play with the surface height of this, and it just depends on how high you want the initial model to be. But remember, on top of this, we're going to build up the image, so it'll go a little taller. So we can come back here and play with this after we get the image on there. So that was pretty simple in this field here. We just click on the picture menu to get to the next stage. The next stage is going to let us load the bitmap, so we click Load Bitmap, and we go out for exactly the same bitmap that we put on the viewport initially, which was Adwar After, and hit Open. There it comes, and you just have to wait for a second for it to kind of catch up. It's loading a pretty large bitmap, as you'll recall from DG. That was pretty big. Sometimes it helps for me to pause the video, then it catches up because it has a lot of thinking to do when it's making one of these movies. So we're going to click Next. We're going to click Fill Shape. And that's going to allow this bitmap to fill this rectangular shape. Okay, and something that I adjusted here that wouldn't necessarily be adjusted yet on your matrix art is the resolution. So we'll put it down to 10, which is the default setting, and you'll get to see the difference. Now you can see it just got a little more blurry, and that might be the desired result. But if you'd like to see a little more of the detail, which incidentally, that original image that I brought in at first, you could see all the little pixels, all the little grains in that image came out in MatrixArt, and it just looked like a big, hairy mess, which is why I took them out in Digital Goldsmith ahead of time. Even working in the effects menu with the blur and stuff, you just can't get the control that you can in DG ahead of time. So that gets rid of that graininess, and now you just see the nice puffy coat right here. So the resolution, raising the resolution at this stage is going to benefit us. We'll go about 18, a little less than 20 there, and just see what we get. We're going to get tighter details on things like the sunglasses, the corner of her coat, the wrinkles in her coat, but we also get the graininess where it still remains. So we need to get rid of that. So we just did that with the resolution to raise the detail on things like the sunglasses. And now we want to get rid of some of the graininess. We're going to go into the effects menu next, and we're going to play with the blur amount. We'll start with low, try medium, try high. And again, it just depends on the results that you want to get for this. I think we'll try low. We'll try medium. Okay, and another thing you can play with, which is really good because this is an illustration, like if you had drawn it with a pen or a pencil, okay, that's what I call an illustration. You can play with the contrast on an illustration, and that is really what it's designed for. So what the contrast is going to do is raise the lows higher, okay, so that everything that was low gets raised up, and of course it all kinds of disappears. Or you can raise the highs lower, so all the high parts of the image get lowered down, which is another interesting effect. It just tends to look more like a pencil mark. Or you can play with both ends, and the highs go down as the lows go up. So that can give you some interesting effects. In this case, it's not going to do much for us, but that's okay. Okay, and basically what you're seeing is you've got your skier. Let's get rid of this background, this whole broad field that she's on, because we probably just want something in the shape of just the skier. To do that, we're going to come down. Oh, this docked again. We're going to click and drag it out here so you can see the bottom of the menu. We're going to come down to the bottom of the menu and select Trim to Bitmap. Okay, what that does is just get rid of everything in the image that's on pure black background. Okay. Something else we can play with here is the bitmap height, and that's the height above the actual surface. And if we lower that, you'll see you'll get some different results in the look. You won't get such a high image. Now this looks pretty bad to us, and this looks pretty good, but it might not be deep enough for your mill to cut. It looks especially good when it's on like 0.2 or something. 0.09 millimeters. Doesn't that look super? That'll just polish right off. So you do need to give the mill something to chew into. So give it a little height even if you think it looks bad now, because it'll polish off in the end and you won't have anything left. It's better to have too much than too little. And the other thing we can play with, if this is getting too tall above the viewport now, we can go back to the initial layers screen and just lower the surface height, because remember that's going to take the whole bitmap with it, so you're going to get something extra tall. The bitmap height is going to be added to that, so we can start that off low, then add the bitmap height to it and get about, what's this, about 1.5 millimeters. Get about the height you want. Okay, a few things to note about this image. Right here where her coat is, it's hard to kind of tell what that is. I mean, it's clear if we know, hey, it's a skier, but it goes down unnaturally. This part of your coat would be puffier, probably come up past your face and be kind of puffy. But because it's dark in color in our image, it actually goes down. And we are going to look at in a second here how to fix that. Something else we can note is the knee. Obviously this knee, this like hip and knee would be out in front of the other one, but right now they're both about the same height. Same thing with her shoes. So we're going to look at how to fix that in case this doesn't give you the best possible result that you want. So let's first hit create mesh so we can compare the two when we're done. Okay, once you see the mesh, you'll notice it's really hard to see it Go into your shade menu and choose plastic shade. Now, unfortunately, that wipes out your background, I'm sorry, your picture frame. But anyway, you can see the mesh much better. And this actually has a pretty good result. Looks a little better to me in the plastic shade mode than it did over in the Matrix Art preview mode, but hey, we do what we can. Okay, so let's look at those two improvements, the area around the coat and this leg that's sort of right now even with the other leg when it should probably be out in front of it, okay? We'll also get rid of that. We'll bring the picture back. So I'm not going to touch the curve. I'm just going to take the surface and the mesh, slide them out into space, and leave them there so we can compare our results. Then I'm going to do exactly the same steps over again, which are in the View menu, Picture Frame. I'm going to bring in the edited bitmap, open, and I'm just going to snap it to the existing place on the screen. Okay. Now, because you'll recall that when I was over here in Matrix Art, and I was in the picture menu, and I loaded the bitmap, the first thing I did was hit Fill Shape. Down here at the bottom, can you see it? Fill Shape. And that is very important because it's going to match the picture out here in Matrix Art to the picture out here in the viewports. So that if we want to do any editing for things like this coat and this leg, it'll match exactly the location and the size of the curves that we've got out here. So we can actually bring the bitmap in and match the existing curves. And that's what we're going to use this for. So that's why it's really important to trace this bitmap ahead of time using the curve tool, rectangle, and bring in exactly that rectangle that matches that bitmap so that if there's anything we want to do to it with curves later, everything will line up. Okay, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to pick a new color. It'll be a higher layer color than the color that we drew the rectangle with. We're going to choose the Interp Curve tool, and we're just going to simply trace around the low area of this bitmap. Okay, so you remember that this coat part was unnaturally low. Enter. And if I want to get hard edges, I just hit Enter, Enter on this tool. Leave a hard edge and then start the tool up again. She's got a really funny chin. But so do I. So Enter, Enter. Try to find the edges of her coat. I might be a little more careful with that, but right now I'm just teaching here. So, all right, join these up. You want to pick a separate color so you can adjust them both independently of one another. Pick another color. Doesn't matter where it is on the line unless the two curves overlap. And since they don't, as long as they're both higher than the yellow or the color we traced the initial rectangle with, we're fine. So let's just trace around this leg here. And if you want to, you could do the whole shoe just to make sure that that whole part is out in front of the other part. Let's go around her shoe. If you mess up, you hit U and Enter, and that just initiates the undo option up here, which is a really handy little part of the program. Okay, and again, I probably would have been more careful, but escape. Let's make sure those are all joined up. The one thing you do want to do is make sure that both of these curves are single closed curves. So you can take a look. Just make sure they're single closed curves. Let's bring all three curves into Matrix Art and see the results. Remember, they have to be closed curves. They have to be planar or flat in the looking down viewports. And you really want to use different layer colors unless you want to control the two curves together. So say you had two eyes or two hands and you want them to be at the same level, you could put them on the same layer color. Otherwise, use different ones. And make sure the curves that are tracing the shapes in the image are higher than the curve that's tracing the shape around the entire model. Select them all and put them into Matrix Art. See if there, can you see that a little better now? Okay. Same thing here. I've already played with the profile shapes, so I apologize for that, but let's bring this out here. Stop docking. this out here. Sorry about that. It's a little smaller on screen than it usually is, so it's being problematic. Anyhow, just like we did with the first layer color, to get the profile shape for it, we're going to come up to the second layer color, click Load Profile, select one of the shapes to start from, and then if you'd like, because he gets this sort of chiseled edge down the center, play with these control points to make the puffy portion of this on the edges, and then the top a little more flat. I don't want it to push in, but okay. And same thing for purple, which we've already done. You don't need to see that again. And now you're ready to load the bitmap. So over in the picture menu where we load the bitmap, you want the current layer to be yellow. That's the one you want to load the bitmap on. And you know that because the curve that traces the outside of the bitmap in the original, when we placed the picture frame and then traced it with the curve, is the yellow curve. And that's the same exact layer you want to put the image onto. So we do load bitmap. Go get that same image that we had placed earlier using the picture frame tool. You'll wait just a moment for it to collect its, and once it appears, come on, you can click Fill Shape, and the shape will match up exactly with your curves. And you can see why it's so important to maintain the same aspect ratio of the picture you're going to load in and the picture in the viewports. And by doing that, you simply trace it with the rectangle curve. Okay. And now we can play with the look that these kind of extra parts here are going to have. You can see now that this extra foot is up higher than the other foot, and if that looks too tall to you, come back into the first menu, the layer menu, select the color representing that part of the design, and simply play with this height a little bit. So it should be over that leg, but you don't want it to poke up so much that it looks unnatural. Same thing with the purple. We can take a look, and we want it to be a little higher than her face, but not like so extraneously higher than her face that it looks unrealistic. So see, this is about where it was before, down below. We want to just raise it just a tiny bit up. Okay. Let's come over into the picture menu. You want to go back to the yellow layer so that all the effects are going to be carried over onto this picture. And we can play with the blur again, same as before. The blur level that you like for this picture. And you can play with the resolution if you like. And when you're ready, hit, back in your picture menu, you want to trim to the bitmap, which is to remove the entire black background, leaving just the parts of the image that you trimmed in DG. And remember that this is the part in Digital Goldsmith where we painted the background with the alpha masking tool, which basically eliminates the whole background. Then we pasted the white image onto a pure black 000 background to ensure that the only thing left when we were done in Matrix Art would be the outline of the skier. So trim bitmap trims away everything in the background that's pure black 000 and leaves us just the image that we had trimmed away in DG originally. So you hit create mesh, and let's see the results that we get. Okay, we can compare these two results because we left the other ones on screen. Just remember, don't be alarmed. Plastic mode is going to throw away our background, our picture frame, but it's a small price to pay. And we can compare the two. In this one, we have that higher leg, okay? We have the higher coat, so it looks a little more realistic right around her face. And you know, if you want to go all the way, you can do this with her glasses. I mean, the glasses, once you get down to it, this piece is going to be pretty small, so it's really just an effect that's going to be left over. But if you're doing it larger or you really want to be picky, you can do the same thing on the curves with her glasses. Might help to do her face separate of her hair so that her face is lifted up. You could even do maybe the sash around her waist. I'm not sure what that is. You could do her skis independently of her legs. And you would do that all with the curves that we placed. So the purple and the red are the maroon color curves that we placed. And there's the original side by side. It's just a little more flat. It plunks in there. I don't know what that word would be. And there's a little divot down where her scarf would usually be puffy. So we've got the puffy scarf right here. So that just gives you some effects to compare in Matrix Art, some techniques to use in Digital Goldsmith to prepare the picture ahead of time, and some basic rules of matrix art and the way to get it to do what you're looking for. If you have any questions, you can email me. It's jill@gemvision.com. Thanks.